Hey everybody, this is Valerie. Don't watch at night warning up top. This is a book club episode, meaning that months in advance we selected a book and we announced it on our show for you to read along with us so that you could then come to the discussion episode. If you've read the book, you're ready. If you haven't had a chance to read it yet, but you really want to, we have tons of resources and reviews in our show notes for you to look through. Otherwise, do consider the fact that we're about to drop some spoilers galore. So now you get to choose your own adventure.
Today, and so
you have to go back to work as soon as we're done?
You have to do notes.
This is unacceptable. I demand something else for you.
I demand to be rich.
So. Hey, tell me about your earrings. Those are
they're the ones I got at their Morticia.
Those are so cute.
I wish I could remember. She had like these, and then she had some with Lily Munster on them, and I wish she'd had like a set where you could like one of each. Because that's really what I wanted, one of each. And I can't remember what the name was of the booth. So I look for her online because I would like to get the Lily Munster ones.
Those are so cute. I love was it the same vendor where I got my skulls?
No.
Okay.
No, she was more in the middle.
Okay, yeah. The skulls was more on the edge. So yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, let's get going then, because you have work to get back to. And actually, after I get done here, I have to go outside and start loading stuff into my car because I've got a dude showing up at 8 a.m. because tomorrow's Fall Fest. So
how are you feeling? Because you still sound a little congested.
I'm congested, but I am like way hopped up on Dayquil, so I'm riding that high. Mixed with tequila because of the cocktail, so Dayquil and tequila, that's what it is. Anyway, okay. This is Don't Watch at Night, a spooky little podcast dedicated to Spanish language horror and Latin American horror. I'm your host, Valerie.
And I'm Veronica.
And we are here with a book club episode. Also, this is, at the time that you're listening to this is Halloween week. Happy Halloween.
Yay.
Veronica's go-to movie on Halloween night is the beloved Halloween.
The OG.
Yes, Jamie Lee Curtis. What is it, 1979?
Something like that.
Yeah, I want to say it was that.
I should know.
You know what it made me think about is the fact that I don't really have a go-to. Like, I watch Halloween movies the whole month of October, and then on actual Halloween night, I don't have like a designated thing that I watch.
We've got little kids that still like trick-or-treat.
Trick-or-treat, yeah.
Mine don't have any interest in that anymore.
Right, yeah. So we will be doing the trick-or-treating, and then because the oldest is kind of like he's on the cusp of aging out of trick-or-treating, but he still wants to be involved in the fun. So he voiced to me a desire to bring back our haunted garage thing that we would do in previous years. He voiced a desire to bring that back this year. So I said, okay, sure. Yeah, let's do a modified version of that because it's a lot of work and I'm not up to it. But so we're going to do like a haunted scene in the garage. So instead of making it something that people walk through, it'll just be something that they walk up to and take part in. So we're modeling it. I think I talked about this on the podcast at some point in the early stages, but we're modeling it after the mad scientist laboratory of Dr. Frankenstein. So
isn't it already up and done?
No, it's not up and done. I'm going to be doing a lot of this on the spot. Halloween day, Halloween morning, I will be in the garage kind of erecting this set. But it's just, I figure I can do it. All I'm setting is a scene. I already have the body of Frankenstein. I have the mask. I got all that crap online. And then I have a lot of creepy stuff in my house already. This is the benefit of being a weirdo who stockpiles creepy stuff, because I can just incorporate that into my scene that I'm creating. So I'm trying to be like a set designer for the night. That's my plan anyway. Ron, if you have a chance, because it's on Hulu. Did you ever see Ready or Not? It's kind of like a dark horror comedy. Did you ever see it?
No.
Okay, it came out in 2019. It's on Hulu right now. You should watch it. If you have time in between now and Halloween, you should watch it. Alex, I was like, Alex, it's a horror comedy. Let's watch it. And so I finally got to see it. Everyone's always raved about it. And I finally got to watch it. It's so good. You should watch it. It's got Andy McDowell and
On Hulu?
on Hulu. And the lead woman is Samara Weaving. And Adam Brody's in it, but there's like other people in it too. But like Andy McDowell is like, I guess, the big name that you'll know. But it's good. It's good. It's not like scary. It's more thriller, but comedy too, and it's funny. You'll appreciate it. It's an easy watch. He enjoyed it. Alex enjoyed it, and Alex doesn't like scary movies, so. Here comes my segment. It's my cocktail segment.
Oh, joy.
This is Veronica's like, she checks out on me every time.
I'm just drinking a monster drink.
That's good. Okay, so I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the cocktail pairing that we chose for this, which was beyond obvious given the characters in this story. We're going with a Paloma this cocktail round because there is a Paloma in this book. There's a Paloma character. Veronica, I've talked to you before on this podcast, and all listeners, I've talked to you guys before about a highball. Do you remember, Ron, what a highball is?
No, I do not, Alex.
Okay,
like I'm on a game show.
For those new to this podcast, Veronica is not an imbiber. She does not generally imbibe. It is a rarity. It is like the moments when she will. That's like a unicorn moment. So, but I have said before, and like I was reminded researching the stuff on Paloma, the history of it.
I'm going to try really hard not to break into song during this podcast. Do you know what song I'm talking about?
No, but
Una paloma blanca. So every time you say Paloma, like that's running in my head.
Okay. No, because a Paloma is a highball. It's part of the highball family. And a highball, I have said before, I think like, so Veronica's not a drinker. She just didn't enjoy the taste of alcohol, which is totally
it's not
fine.
a moral thing at all. I just don't like
She doesn't like the taste of it. But like a highball, if I was to try to get Ron to drink anything, and for those of you out there who may know Veronica or meet Veronica and want to get her to drink anything, I would lure her in with a highball because a highball is a low ABV cocktail. It's going to be lower in alcohol content. You're starting with your base spirit, and then the proportion of your mixer is higher than it would be for a cocktail. So like, let's play percentages. If a cocktail is like 50-50, then a highball would be like 30-70 or something like that.
What is the name of a highball that I might know or have heard of?
I don't know because I don't drink a lot of them.
Alcoholics Anonymous. Here we go.
Okay, stop. I've heard that a Scotch and soda is a highball.
Yeah, that doesn't sound good at all.
I mean, yeah, I don't like. I'm not a big Scotch drinker.
Here are mixed drinks that I have that I do like. If I were to be in a bar, this is what I would order. I don't know what they were classified as. Like an Amaretto sour.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Collins.
A Tom Collins, I think, is a highball. It's considered a highball.
And that's it. That's the two. Oh, I like frozen Bellinis.
Do you know what the highball of the moment is?
No.
That you might appreciate? An Arnold Palmer.
I'm not kidding.
In relation to Donald Trump's latest whatever, where he was talking about the size of his Arnold Palmer's junk. Anyway.
Oh,
by the way, everybody get out and vote.
Yes.
Early voting is happening.
Says the one who hasn't voted of the two of us yet.
I haven't voted yet. I've been sick, as you can tell. I've been sick. Like my immune system died this week. So anyway.
But yes, if you live in the U.S., please go vote.
Please go vote. Yes. So history of the Paloma. Let's go. The origins of the Paloma cocktail are not 100% clear. There are those who believe that a man by the name of Don Javier Delgado Corona, owner of La Capilla, the oldest bar in Jalisco, Mexico, they believe that he was the inventor of the Paloma, although he later came to deny that. So he said he had no involvement with it. Some say that it was the invention of Squirt, the grapefruit soda, being introduced to Mexico in the 1950s. That was where the Paloma came to be. They said that they kind of just mixed it with tequila and it became the go-to drink from there. Still, others say that it's older than that. As we know, La Paloma in Spanish means the dove, and some think the classic drink may have been named for a popular Mexican folk song composed in the 1860s. which
It's
is,
not the La Paloma Blanca.
I don't think, I don't know. I'm not familiar with the 1800 song. Regardless. Okay, so a traditional Paloma is considered, as I said, part of the highball family. Would involve 2 ounces of tequila, a ½ ounce lime juice, grapefruit soda, 4 ounces, I should say, of grapefruit soda, pinch of salt. You could skip the salt if you don't want it, and then you garnish with a lime wheel. If you're in Mexico, the go-to soda that you might use here would be Jarritos, but Squirt, the aforementioned Squirt, is also very well liked. And the key to any Paloma is going to be a tequila that is a blanco. If you'll permit me, Veronica, I'm going to talk to you about the 5 types of tequila. So you have your blanco, which is your silver or your white. You have your joven, your gold. You have a reposado, which is an aged tequila. And then you have añejo and extra añejo, which is ultra aged. So, and I've never had extra añejo tequila or even an añejo. I've had reposados before. A blanco, for those who don't know, is going to be more agave forward. So it'll have flavors that are agave, citrus, pepper, grass, while a reposado will have more oak-aged expressions that are toastier, think warmer. Notes of vanilla, caramel, dried fruits, yada, yada. All of that to say that a blanco is going to be the obvious pick for a Paloma because a Paloma has citrus. You're bringing in that grapefruit. So a blanco will complement that nicely. You can. There are variations on Palomas. You can, if you're doing something that's spicier and warmer, you can incorporate a reposado, but I didn't do that this go around. So go with if you're doing this cocktail, go with a blanco. This was an obvious choice given that Paloma is what brings us to this story written by Brenda Lozano. However, we're not in the midst of summer anymore, and a Paloma, at least in these parts of Texas that Ron and I are from, it's really considered kind of a summer drink. So we found something that is more seasonally appropriate, I think. We're drinking a sage and ginger Paloma, and this comes from a resource called the Foul Mouth Gourmet. We've linked it in our episode blog. And it also includes a great recipe for the cinnamon sage honey syrup that's featured in this drink. This is one of those recipes that's calling for grapefruit juice as opposed to a grapefruit soda. And I will say this, if you're doing a Paloma where there's no other competing sweetener, where it's just tequila, then do the grapefruit soda. You need the Jarritos or you need the Squirt because you need that extra sugar. In this recipe, because she's pulling another sweetener, because we're using a honey syrup, don't do a grapefruit soda. I think it would make it entirely too sweet. So stick with a grapefruit juice and do what the recipe is calling for. So this is the recipe. ½ ounce of lime juice, 2 to 3 tablespoons of the sage honey mixture. I only did 2 tablespoons, FYI. It was plenty sweet enough for me. 2 ounces of grapefruit juice, 2 ounces of tequila, and then you're going to top it off with ginger beer. You're only doing 2 ounces of grapefruit juice. You're not doing the full 4 ounces that a traditional Paloma would call for. So consider that those final 2 ounces are going to come from the ginger beer that you pour on top. And I would say for those of you looking to do this as a mocktail, skip the tequila entirely. This drink stands on its own without tequila. So if you want to try it, keep all of these ingredients the same. Skip the tequila. Ginger beer, most commercial ginger beers are non-alcoholic. At most they might have like 0.5% of alcohol. But if you're looking to just no alcohol whatsoever, then go with ginger ale. Ginger ale is going to be just fine in this scenario. So give that a try. I tried it. It's delicious, easy to drink. And if you're not careful and you have too many of them, then you're going to probably wind up in the same boat that you might have been in if you had like a more straightforward cocktail. So drink responsibly and hydrate with water. And we have full recipe notes on this on the blog. So the recipe that will take you to also like what you need for the honey syrup. Just real quickly, it calls for like 1/4 cup of honey, 6 to 8 sage leaves. I grow sage in my backyard, but if you have access to a local market in your area, they might have sage there. 1 cinnamon stick and ½ cup of water. You get that all in a pot, you simmer it. Let the honey dissolve, let everything steep for like a solid 10 minutes, and then just discard your solids, and you've got a good syrup base.
I'm gonna try not to sing. Nobody wants me to sing.
Okay, so we can get right into segment 2, which is discussing Witches by Brenda Lozano. This book came out in 2022. Award-winning author Brenda Lozano. This is what we read was a translated work. And it was a departure from like our traditional books where we've tried to pick like a horror novel. I think I can say, because I was the one who pitched this, I can say that I pitched this based off of the description where it kind of sounded like it was going to be focused on a murder and then, the mystery of solving that. Unconventional plot, a nonlinear plot, which is what I said to Ronnie. And honestly, I may, in a minute, Ron, I may like step away to go grab my book because there were a lot of beautiful passages that I tabbed. I pulled a Veronica. I had my sticky notes tabbing it because there were lots of passages that I thought were worded so lovely. But it was very different from what I thought the book was going to be. Ron, what did you think of it? Did you listen to it or read it?
Half. I read about half of it. And okay, let me just start off by saying
you also tabbed it. I can see you tabbed it.
Yeah, but not
not in a good way.
Not necessarily for the reasons you did.
Okay.
It was a very different style of story. And I don't have a problem with nonlinear storytelling. I read a lot of science fiction. I mean, hell, trying to keep track of River Song's timeline in Doctor Who, you needed charts. So I don't have a problem with nonlinear storylines. I think one of the reviews that I think it was the Shondaland one that you have included in show notes, because we got 2 point of view characters, right?
Yes.
And each one has a very different voice. And the voice of Feliciana, hers is very much, it was described in that review as being looping and unending. It was kind of what I would almost equate to being almost a stream of consciousness type of storytelling, where it's just run-on sentences, very little punctuation, and right there, because I am somebody who even in a text message have to use correct grammar. So
this breaks Veronica's brain in many ways.
This was going to be a problem for me. I do not enjoy stream of consciousness type storytelling, and that's just a personal preference. It has nothing to do with the writing. Just like I like epistolary formats, like when a story is told in mixed media, like emails or text messages or documents. It's not traditional narrative, and other people don't like that. So that part of it is just a matter of preference. So I halfway through the book, I said, you know what, I can't read this. So I switched to the audiobook about halfway through, and the audiobook narrator did a good job. She made it sound more natural than the way it was sounding in my head.
Well, yeah. And that's what it kind of like, it was difficult also for me to read because it did kind of felt like the transcription of an interview, which is, I guess, like what it is. It's like if we're taking the story, the journalist Zoe goes to interview this woman, this curandera, and so it's like a transcription of what she said in these interviews. And so, yeah, it's hard to read, but I'm imagining it was easier to listen to.
Yeah, it was easier to listen to. So that helped make a difference.
Where this book opens, it opens on the murder of Paloma. And Paloma is a healer in her community, born as a man, as Gaspar, but she's considered, or she is, I should say, would it be pronounced mushy?
I think that's how the narrator said it. Mushy.
Yeah, mushy. Okay. Which is just, it's in the Zapotec culture considered third gender. How we as Americans, and I read a review about like how we as Americans might see it, we would see it as like transgender. She is Paloma. That is who this character is. At the beginning of this book, Paloma has been murdered. And Paloma was she was a cousin of Feliciana, right? Yeah. So she's Feliciana's cousin because Paloma was born a man. She was born into like the family of curanderos, right? So the language. Right. And in this particular story, the healers are always traditionally men, so curanderos. And so she was born with the language in her, the language which in the book is always capitalized. It's whatever it is like consciousness, it is knowledge. That is part of her because of her lineage. Feliciana, who's her cousin, Paloma at some point says to Feliciana, the language is in you also. It's up to you to like go to your father and tell him that this is your path, regardless of whether or not you're a woman. The situation is that Feliciana is not in line to be a healer because by virtue of the fact that she's a woman, but at a certain point she says, this is my path, I'm declaring it. And then Paloma is murdered. And so I kind of anticipated that the story was going to be all about finding out who murdered her. And I guess just like from the jump, we realize like, or not from the jump, but as you move through the book, you kind of realize that's not where this story's going at all. We're not
No, in
going to
fact,
have
I
that.
kept forgetting that she had even been murdered because, and actually, I had even forgotten the name of, like, like I said, there's the two point of view characters, Feliciana, who's the indigenous curandera, and then Zoe, who's a more modern journalist who's there to do the story about the murder. And I totally even forgot that her name was Zoe,
Well,
totally,
yeah,
until I finished the book, because she really just talks a lot about Leandra, which is her sister. So I
right.
completely blanked on what her name even was.
Yeah. There's not like a whole lot of dialogue in this book. There's a lot
What
of
it,
first person narrative.
yeah, what it feels like to me is if, like, you're sitting at a bus stop, minding your own business, somebody comes and plops down next to you and just starts telling you their entire life story, like all the minutia of their life story.
Which
You're
is my
like,
nightmare.
mine too is like, hello, my mind is going numb. So that's kind of what it felt like. It didn't feel like there was really a plot to this book, which is another storytelling device that I don't like, which is why I don't read a lot of like just general fiction, literary fiction, because to me, those books don't really have a thing that the characters are actively, consciously moving towards.
What I would say, so this is a really beautiful book in terms of the way it portrays sisterhood, the way it portrays womanhood. And I use like the big umbrella for womanhood. I don't just mean what you're assigned at birth, but what you identify as, what you feel is within you. It portrays that really beautifully. And I think it also has what this book does really well is these characters are extremely fleshed out. By the end of this book, you know exactly who these people are because you spent the entire story reading about them. One of the things that we have linked for you guys is the fact that this book has been optioned for a series. And so I feel like I kind of do want to see what the world is that they inhabit. And I do want to see more of what might come from this story because I feel like somebody described it as sort of like a novella. And I feel like that's what it is. I feel like we just get like this little snippet of their lives, and I want to know so much more.
See, I'm good. When I read that it was optioned for a series, I was like, but why?
We haven't even dived into the murder yet, Veronica. Like all we've done is build up these characters, and it's just like, okay, and now go solve the murder of Paloma. Like you're not interested in knowing that? That's like what I want to know. I'm like, I want to know who murdered Paloma. I want to know. And then I went into this book thinking we were going to find out, and then we didn't find out.
I don't know. It wasn't that one-eyed Tadeo or whatever the heck his name was.
No, Tadeo shot at Feliciana, but Tadeo didn't have anything to do with Paloma's murder. And they do kind of touch on it at the end of the book. Like the general, it was broad strokes, but it was the concept that the person who murdered Paloma was ultimately a man who, I'm paraphrasing the language of the book, but she carried some unknown thing within her, unknown sickness within her, a sickness she didn't know she carried. And she gave it to him, not knowing that she'd given it to him. Upon learning this, he grew angry and he murdered her, essentially. It definitely touches on transgender violence and sort of like what impacts these communities. And so because it was so broadly touched on, there's ways that you could definitely take a series and go deeper with that and flesh out these worlds even more. What this book does well, like I said, is character development. And I didn't even have a chance because I literally finished the book this morning. I didn't even have a chance to look to see if there were book club questions out there, Ron. While I'm looking at passages, can you just look and see if there's any? Hold on. While you're looking at stuff, I'm going to read this. Where she's talking about the silkworms that take 4 seasons to grow because their family would cultivate these silkworms where they would make their silk fabrics from. She would say, when the worms got to be a good size, we separated them from the little ones so they didn't eat each other because that's how life is. That's how we all are. Even the worms are like people. If you leave 3 men alone with a machete, they'll find a way to kill one another, and you'll never know how all 3 managed to die by the same machete. And that's how worms are just like people. If you leave them alone, they'll kill each other, and you'll never know how the one who killed the other 2 died. Worms and people both like to go at their kind with machetes. So it's just like little passages like that I just thought were so thought-provoking.
I did have one that I marked. There were some that I liked. There were some nice passages. Okay, this is Paloma talking to Feliciana. Grandpa Cosme used to call me pájaro, but not because I walked like I had feathers. He called me that because I have wings, where other people have regrets and fears, and they can't stand up from the weight of everything their families expect from them. And to all those gentlemen I say, why carry around so many regrets and fears if Christ already carried them for you, my beauties? Look at him there on the cross suffering for you. Go out and enjoy life because it is beautiful, and I say it with my lips painted red because otherwise my smile would be naked.
That's
Which I
beautiful.
thought was a nice passage.
There was a nice passage. I forgot where it was in the book, and this was like when I didn't have my tabs near me. Otherwise, I would have tabbed it. There was a nice passage that talked about firstborns, and I thought of you. And it was towards the end of the book, and I don't know if I can find it, but I
remember that passage because I was like, yep, that's true.
Can you find it? Can you read it?
I didn't tab it, I don't think, but it was just basically that the firstborn. I tabbed it.
Let me see if I can find it, because it was towards the end, right? I thought it was towards the end. I bet that resonates with Veronica.
It did.
But there were some beautiful ones about sisterhood. So I don't know, like all in all, it's just like story-wise, I'm not sure the story goes anywhere, but you get this. You know what it is. You know what I felt like it's like. And correct me if I'm wrong, Ron. But did it feel to you like it was a lot of day in the life types? Yeah. Yes, which is what you have said you hate.
Yeah, this was very much like. And the other thing that was like by the end definitely starting to annoy me is that it's very repetitive. She will take like a whole page and just kind of basically repeat the same sentiment.
See, that would be
over and over again.
Feliciana's. That was that was Feliciana's narrative.
And I was like, okay, I got it the first 10 times you said it. You don't need to repeat it again.
Well, but this is where I kind of wondered if, like, because we are reading a translated work, I wondered if maybe the original manuscript would be different, would read different.
This is another one that I did like, that the social worker in me also agrees with. This is Feliciana's point of view. I thought if I can heal myself tonight, then I can heal other people, because that's how it is with everything. First yourself and then others. What you are able to do in your own deep waters, you can do for others. Which is basically like, you can't, you've heard that phrase before. You can't truly love other people until you've learned to love yourself. So you can't have positive, healthy relationships with other people until you've kind of fixed your own junk, your own crap.
Right. I love how I love how she always referred to it as deep waters. I really liked that. And I really liked how it took me, I mean, I think I pretty readily figured it out, but like, I love how she also referred to what I think of like as a medical doctor as a sage of medicine. You are genuinely talking about a healer from an indigenous region of Mexico who just is not exposed to all these modern technologies that we would know. So when she talks about like they would come and they would draw their movies, the person who came to visit her she said draw movies for children or something to that effect, and it's just like, okay, I interpreted that as like maybe that's a cartoonist, maybe that's someone who, or maybe it's someone who animates films, like makes animated films. She would use phrases like Feliciana, I'm talking about Feliciana, the character, would say phrases like they would bring their machines and their machines would make the movies and stuff like that. It was just really very eye-opening for talking about someone who's never been exposed to these, or like in other instances where somebody who I kind of envision as like a Jeff Bezos kind of character, except maybe less douchebaggish, but like somebody who was like, they sent us copies of their film and the machines with which to watch them, but we couldn't watch them because it draws too much power from the community we live in. And so it's like, they're not able to watch these movies that they keep sending us, that they keep putting us in, but here they are. So it's little things like that I kind of really enjoyed about the book. And I don't know.
Did you buy your copy or did you get it from the library?
I did buy it. I did, because I'd seen it. Like, I'd wanted to read this book. I'd seen it a bunch of times in stores. And so I really wanted to read it. It's not what I thought it was going to be, but it was really, there's lots of things that were really lovely about it. I really liked all of the passages that focused on the sisterhood and kind of focused on the sisterhood of Feliciana and her sister. who she kind of invoked the language in the first place in order to be able to heal, right? Like, I feel like her journey as a curandera started with her sister, whose name is Francisca. Is that right?
Mhm.
And then Zoe and her relationship with Leandra. If this were to go to a series, I mean, I feel like this is one of those situations where it's just like you've got your fully formed characters and all you need is a story.
I think some of my tabs must have fallen out because I know I had marked that one about sisters and the one about the oldest, and they're not here. And
There is one that I tabbed that is kind of relevant to what you said also, where this is from the point of view of Feliciana. I thought if I can heal myself tonight, then I can heal other people, because that's how it is with everything. First yourself and then others. What you are able to do in your own deep waters, you can do for others.
I will say though, where yes, we know a lot of details of and the events, the seminal of, especially the more seminal events of these two in the lives of these two women. I feel, me personally, it wasn't told to me, or I did not receive it in a way that it evoked any kind of emotional response from me.
What? Okay, say that again. What now?
That even though we did get a lot of information about the lives of these two women and the events that have kind of brought them to this point in their lives where they're meeting each other, it was not told to me or conveyed to me in a way that it evoked any kind of emotion from me. It was just kind of like a dry, almost information dump.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's because for me, maybe that the emotional aspect didn't come across in the translation. Maybe it would have been more emotion inducing in its native Spanish language. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I didn't feel any really
You're
strong
like,
emotion.
I didn't feel stuff.
I didn't feel, I was not in my feelings in this book. I was reading a book and then listening to a book, but I was never sitting in my feelings for any of it.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know that I was feeling in my feelings about this book until I guess we get to the very end. I did love the ending. I loved the final pages where she says, where she talks about Paloma. Obviously, Paloma is now gone, and she talks about Paloma is here with me every day, talking to me the way she talked. She is my language now. She is here with me as I speak to you. She speaks to you through my words. You visited your deep waters and you saw that your deep waters tell you not what your name is, but why your name is yours. They tell you, this voice is yours. Your deep waters tell you, here is where I begin and where the others end, because here is where your language begins. The language that belongs to you and no one else. The one you will now write. It's not a book necessarily to be understood. It's just sort of a book it's a fleshing out of these characters and these worlds, and it sort of touches on the community of Mushi and the gendered violence that they experience.
But see, again, I think that part of it was just it was very on the far peripheries of the story. It wasn't really the focus of this story. It was just something that was alluded to, but like the characters themselves didn't seem to have any kind of discussion about it or thoughts about it one way or the other. It was just always said like when they killed Paloma, and that was it. It wasn't like there wasn't even any really emotional response from the character to that. It was just like, well, this happened and this is the rest of the story. So it was very just like not paid attention to.
You start with a question, who killed Paloma, and you end with the kind of acceptance that, and maybe that's the answer, is you start with the question, who killed Paloma, and by the end of it the answer is, that's your dog.
He's having a nightmare. Hold on.
Aw. Comfort Coda.
Coda, you're safe.
But maybe that's the answer of it, is like, who killed Paloma. By the end of the book, the answer is, well, it's hello, Coda, wake up. Coda's having nightmares. Okay, but anyway, as I was saying, like you start at the beginning of the book with the question, who killed Paloma, and maybe by the end of the book, there's no one person who killed Paloma. It's just a society, that ultimately laid, this is the other expression that I love that the book uses, laid the egg of death in her.
Death's egg.
laid death's egg in her. And so,
Which, how do we know? How do I know death hasn't laid its egg in me?
I know,
It
right?
kind of makes
I'm
you
like,
paranoid.
how many times has death laid its egg in me?
I rebuke that in the name of Jesus.
As our mother would say, I rebuke that in the name of Jesus. Who was it? Like, oh yes, this was out of like chapter number 1. I loved the way it ended. This is again Feliciana's point of view, where she's talking about Paloma's discovered murdered. It was 6 at night and shadows fell across the milpa. It was exactly 6 at night when the language left me. And I was like, what is this going to be? It sounds so beautiful. And I mean, I'll say this, and this is like based off of the amount of tabs I have. And I have many tabs. I'm showing it to Veronica. Nobody else can see it. This was supposed to be a episode that we recorded video, but I've been sick and I didn't want to. I think this book has some beautiful writing in it. And I think that this book has very well fleshed out characters in it. I would buy into a story that allows us to explore them further.
Did it ever say in this book, like, when this is happening?
Maybe like early 90s? I don't know why I think that. I feel like it's got 90s vibes on it. But the governor's wife, that maybe these people are involved in sort of seeking retribution on Feliciana for not. Feliciana refused to become their bruja, person who would steer his political career, the governor's political career. And so they retaliated on her by burning down a portion of the house that was being built for her or something to that effect. You kind of get the vibe, okay, maybe it's going in that direction. Maybe whoever targeted Feliciana decided to go after Paloma because that's a person close to her and they're going to off her. But obviously that wasn't the case. It sounds like it was a lover who went after.
That would have to be the story. That would have to be drawn into the forefront instead of just existing on the edges.
And I feel like that's a story that deserves to be told. Final thoughts on this read?
This is just not my style of storytelling. So it's not a knock at all on Brenda Lozano as an author. It's not even a knock on the woman who did the translation. It's just the way that the story was told is not my particular preferred way to take in a story. It will be for other people.
The character Feliciana, this is, I think, known for people who have read the book. But for anyone who is unfamiliar, the character of Feliciana is somewhat based off of a real-life healer named Maria Sabina Magdalena Garcia, who was a shaman and a poet. She lived in a region of Mexico.
A town in Sierra Mazateca in the Mexican state of Oaxaca.
Yeah, in southern Mexico. So this is kind of the character that loosely informs Feliciana. We're reading from Wikipedia here. Her healing sacred mushroom ceremonies called veladas were based on the use of, I think, a certain kind of mushroom. This was a sacred mushroom that was important to Mazatecs. The same as sort of Feliciana in the book. Feliciana is not sure when she was born. She's not sure of her age, same as Maria Sabina. She was not sure, but she believed her year of birth may have been 1894. Her parents were both campesinos. She kind of was just a healer in her time. She lived to be 91 years old. So we're going to link the Wikipedia article for you so that you can read all about her. She had interactions with the Western world because there were people who would come to see her. She kind of gained some notoriety through them.
Maria and her mushrooms.
Yes.
Sending people on what Farmer Vincent would have called a radical hypno high.
Radical hypno high.
Remember that when he was
Definitely look at her, and we wanted to be sure to mention that. But there is this other section that I wanted to be sure to mention. Again, it seems like honestly, for as much as Feliciana's sections in the book were so stream of consciousness, all of my sections that I've tabbed are from her. She was the one saying all the profound stuff.
Well, and because she just used more, it was just more beautiful use of language, whereas Zoe's chapters were just more the traditional kind of utilitarian language.
Reporting,
basically.
Yeah, reporting, yeah. So she says, Feliciana, there are people who fear us because they don't understand what we do. I am not a witch or a fortune teller or a healer like the others. God knows that. The herbs and the mushrooms give me great powers for reflection because that is the greatest power we have on this earth. Reflection is how we heal ourselves and how we can fix any problems or heartbreak. And so with herbs and with the mushroom children, I look inside the sick one. I see the root of their physical sickness or suffering buried in their soul. That is something the sage of medicine can't do. People are afraid of us because they don't know how we do it. But this is something that comes to us from our ancestors. It is as old as the land itself. Bruja versus curandera, one versus the other. The book makes a point of distinguishing that there's a difference between the two, which is important for people to understand. A bruja is not a curandera. So
then I'm wondering why they settled on the title that they did instead of calling it curandera or healer or whatever. Why did they then call it brujas in Spanish and witches in the translated English?
I don't know.
The witch hunts in America, and then the same kind of things that was happening to witches. They weren't burning witches. They were just burning women who were too smart, too opinionated, not being content to just settle in the societal roles of the time. They were women who were wanting to leap ahead of that. And that's who they were burning. Women who could think, who wanted to think for themselves, who weren't just happy just to be the property of their husband or their father or whoever the man in their life was. That's who they were burning.
This is a book that defies being categorized.
You have to use that Paloma Blanca in the...
I can't because of copyright.
Oh, man.
Copyright stuff.
But that's an old song.
I don't know. Is it from the 1860s?
No, it's not that old.
Guys, when we pull these resources for you, it is because we want you to do the deep dive. We want you to do the deep reading. It would become a 2-hour podcast. And I know there are 2-hour podcasts out there that do that. Veronica and I can't live that life. I can't sit here and talk to her for 2 hours. I love her. She's my sister, but I can't.
That came out bad.
Well, it's excessive. Like right now I have to pee, so we have to cap it. So that's it. That's
so y'all know, she doesn't answer my phone calls either.
Because you're not dying. Like if you're dying. Everything can be conveyed in an email or a text message. Do know, guys, as you are going into this week, you're getting this on Monday. This is for Texans specific. This is the last week of early voting. Go vote. Election day is November 5th. And if you need resources, go to votetexas.gov. Free plug. We're not paid by anybody. This isn't a promo. If you encounter problems voting, or you run into any issues at your polling place, you have a free nonpartisan line that you can call for help, 866-OUR-VOTE. Dial that, and you will be connected with a nonpartisan expert who can help you answer your questions, report a problem if you have a problem. So do that. This is important to note because October has been special. You've been hearing from us every week. And
I'm tired of us.
I was going to say, what a blessing. Veronica's like, aren't you tired of it? Important to note, after this episode, we're dropping back to our every other Monday format. So miss us. Look forward to the next time we flood your platforms. But for now, we will be dropping back to every other Monday, a much more sustainable pace for us. Thank you, Jesus. Guys, also big announcement.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, sorry. Big announcement. We are finally on YouTube Music. Our podcast is finally there. It took some doing. It's not easy. Google Podcasts is fully roped into YouTube Music now. So we're now there. You can get all of our podcasts there, which means if you're not following our YouTube channel, that's where all that stuff is. Go follow us at Don't Watch at Night Pod on YouTube. Are we Don't Watch at Night Pod everywhere? And I've been telling everybody we're Don't Watch at Night. I've been telling everybody the wrong thing. So everyone pay attention. We're Don't Watch at Night Pod on all social media. Okay. I guess we will see you next time. Thanks for listening.
Bye. Don't Watch at Night is a Nest production hosted by me, Veronica, and Valerie. Editing by Valerie. Music by Omar Chakor. Production support for this episode provided by Lorenzo Villarreal and Alex Street. Listen to new episodes of Don't Watch at Night every other Monday, and don't forget to give us a rate and review. It's the best way to help us grow.